Good afternoon. So how are you?
Yeah.
Okay. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, everyone. So my name is Najwa, and this is my friend Gina Alhamsi. Please introduce
Assalamualaikum.
yourself.
My name is Irina Al-Hamsi from Communication Department, a student, third year student from Syria.
All right.
Yeah. So and here our very great speaker, which is Dr. Mastur Bazis. Can you please introduce yourself?
Yeah. All right. Okay. Well, I'm Associate Professor Dr. Mastura Baziz from Department of Education, Psychology and Counseling. And then I've been teaching in IIUM for quite some times because I joined IIUM when I was a master student actually, because at that time we have what we call as assistant lecturer scheme, in which when you are doing your master, then you can apply to become an assistant lecturer. Then after that, after finish my master, then I thought in the at that time the Kuliah of Education was only Department of Education, and the Kuliah of Revealed Knowledge and Human Sciences. You see, and then after about 2 years, almost 2 years or 1.5 years after teaching, after masters, then I pursue my study at the University of Warwick, UK, at the School of Education, Institute of Education, University of Warwick, UK. And then I'm doing my doctorate in education, focusing on with coursework and thesis actually. So that my specialization is more on early childhood development and education. So that's basically the things. Well, actually, I don't want to say myself as specialist in special needs. However, because my area of specialization is on early childhood development and education, so that, of course, anything related to the development, the education of young children, okay, is still under the within my area of specializations. And then when we talk about development, and then there is issues related to early intervention, early identification, then there where autism come in. I mean, because the early detection of autism, so how to help children with autism, there is also coming under this under this area. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. So the first question will be, you have written many articles and received several awards, and I found that in 2021 you're doing a research on the development of module of an autism rehabilitation center in Perlis. Can you tell us more about this research study?
Yep. Okay. Actually, okay, this research is under research grant under Jamalulain, which is under the Majlis Agama Islam Perlis. Okay, and then it was initiated by me and my colleagues, Dr. Nid Saiful Azizi. Okay, which his specialization is in Islamic education actually, and then since this research is funded by the Majlis Agama Islam Perlis, Islamic Education State Department, something like that. Okay, in Perlis. So that's why there were the networking, because of this Islamic education. But Alhamdulillah, there is an intention of focusing of issues related to autism, particularly in Perlis, because in Perlis it seems that based on the data that we got on 2016, there are a lot of cases involving autistic children, and the problem is that there is no something like a state center to in which parents can send their kids who have problems with autism. Okay, they have there are centers for autism, but of course centers are private center, and then and there is also autism under in which it's taken care by primary school education. So which means that limited numbers of students will get the benefit of this. And yet there are also issues related to the training of the teachers, the training of the therapists who are involved in in educating or developing or enhancing the development of these autistic children. Okay. Then the Perlis state, Majlis Agama Islam Perlis, they decided to to build actually a new center under the state. Okay. It's yet to be to be set up, but in the process of setting up. And then they think that there's a need to come up with a module to teach children with autism. Okay, and based on our current, our latest findings related to our situational analysis, we found that the therapy, the occupational therapists, parents, even teachers who are dealing with children with autistic children with those centers which are already existed, either in a school or either in private centers, lack in terms of the skills and knowledge in terms of how to deal with children, children with autism. Even though, we know that occupational therapists, of course, they are trained in their area, but in terms of the element of education per se, they need training, they need treatment, they need training. So that's why we are given a task to develop module for children with autism, something like that. Yes.
So you're saying that you're developing a center for
not
autism,
us. The center is developed by the state. Perlis, Majlis Agama Islam Perlis. Initiative by the Religious State Department. Okay.
And you're developing the model for teaching to autism.
Yeah.
And then I'd like to ask how has autism exactly affected learning for students?
Well, I think okay. I think everyone here know that when we talk about autism, so they are autism is something to do with the neurodevelopmental disorders related to impairment of social interaction, communication, and repetitive patterns of behavior. So and then even if you refer to the idea, it defines autism as a developmental disability affecting verbal and non-verbal communication as well as social interactions. Okay, so when we understand these characteristics of autism, okay, when come into education, among the main problems related to that is that they are struggling with auditory memory. Okay, the auditory memory here refers to the ability to to recall after what is heard. After what is heard after a period of time. In other words, the problem that they face is that the students of autistic children, okay, they have a tendency to focus on the minute feature of an object or a person rather than the whole. This is number one, something to do with education. And then number two, when I said auditory memory just now, okay, the issue is that they have strong aptitude for rote memory, learning experiences for certain things, but they have difficulty in recalling recent events. So that's the thing. They memorize, but to recall is very, very difficult for them. I see. And then okay, this is something to do. Of course, this is something to do with the learning and cognitive things. And yet, okay, children with autism also, okay, they have what we call as uneven skill development, which means that areas of relatively superior performance that are unexpected compared to other domains of functioning. Okay, and then They are also having having a problem of obsessive attention on a specific object or activity for long period of time. Okay, and then beside that, so that's why okay later when we talk about the preparation, the training of teachers, it's not only in terms of teaching method but also in terms of the environment. You know, because children with autism, they have unusual responsiveness to sensory stimuli, meaning to say that because every child with autism is unique, and then their over responsiveness, or what we call as hypersensitivity, okay, to for example, um, intense dislike of certain sounds. The issue is that not all, let's say, if we teach children with autism in a class, not all of them will have the same problem. For example, say, okay, child A, the problem is more on, problems related to sounds. Okay, they can't hear sound, even a simple sound. They cannot uh, uh, they cannot finish. Is for them is too noisy, and then and is so um, is so annoying for them. Even though for us is normal, even the sound of fan, for example, for us is normal, but for them is annoying. You see, and then another thing, something which is being touched, you know uh, okay, and yet the feel of certain textures are somewhat related to sensory disorder. Okay, uh, or or no reaction to any stimuli. Okay, and for example, something a certain stimuli which is quite painful for normal people, but for them is nothing. So these are that makes education, learning quite difficult for them. And then beside that, they are obsessed about having everything in their environment stay the same, and then become very upset when items are moved or when routines change. See, for example, like if their table is here and then the bag is to be like there, and then when you want to tidy up the classes and then you change, then you will face trouble. They don't, the routine, everything must be there. You cannot disturb anything. So it's quite difficult, of course, when come into learning. See, and then another thing is that something related to the aggressive and self-injurious behavior, which is very difficult to handle this type of children in the classroom. Okay, but of course, because we have the different stages of autistic children, we have the mild and then the severe one. You see, of course, it will differ according to different children. Yeah.
Okay, so that
So,
means
yeah, so you're saying that I just want to conclude that the question number three. So like the autism person act different with normal act and think different with normal people, right, doctor?
Yes, that's right. That's right.
okay, so different autism, like students with autism, have different difficulties that they face it. Seeing that happen, if their education system educate for students with autism, like there is a special needs to be done to their
Pardon? Sorry.
um, if the education system educate for students with autism, what more needs to be done?
Okay. When talking about the education system, okay. Basically in Malaysia, okay, we have class, what we call as the learning disability classroom. And then the issue is that when the children with autism, okay, going to school, usually they will be sitting together with other children. In the same class, this what we call as a special class or disability class, together with dyslexic, with Down syndrome, while actually each of them have different needs. So
Yeah.
that's the thing. And then and yet there are, I mean, in Malaysia in particular, there are few schools that offer in which the children with autism will be sent to a special, to a mainstream classroom, what we call as inclusive education, and then but only let's say one or two children, autistic children in one class, but not only autistic children, I mean dyslexic and autistic children, and then Down syndrome children in maybe three of them in one class, and then entertained by different teachers or entertained by the assistant teachers. Okay, but they are sitting in one class in one mainstream class, so that everybody know their needs, try to understand their needs, and at the same time there is a practice in which they will mingle around with others. Okay, however, classes like that are not many. Okay, not many. And then in many situations they are in that special class that I said just now for this learning disability classroom. So that's why coming into when you say that, okay, what more needs to be done, actually is a lot in terms of even in terms of early identification of the children with autism, early detection. And then I had a meeting with because we have another research related to autism. We developed a module to help children with autism to regulate their emotion. Okay, they don't understand their emotions, but okay, and of course problems to regulate emotion. But in the then we found that actually based on the research, based on the statistic, okay, 10% of the population in this world are people with special needs. Okay, and then for example like in Malaysia, we maybe this is not the latest, but at least we understand that in Malaysia we have at about only 1% or less than 1% children with special needs. However, this is only who are already diagnosed with special needs. See, but there are many students out there, many children out there in which they are actually having a problem with autism, but were not diagnosed. Why? Because of ignorance, because of parental denial, because of parents' educations, because of they are living in remote area, for example, and because parents didn't know that their children are autistic. So that's why when talk about what more needs to be done, yes, we really need to have this awareness, and then campaign. We need to make clear for example, like parents who are living in a deprived area, for example, remote area, and then not only that, even parents, educated parents, they might not aware that they are having children with autism. For example, and then places for the children with autism to be educated. Also, you need to send your kids to private centers, and perhaps there are some NGOs. For example, I believe that you heard about NASO, okay, National Association of Autistic Children, but only one organization, and then maybe they are also, but many schools are private schools or NGO schools, but school under government, like I said, few schools, but the school is not really focusing on autism per se. It's children with disabilities. Okay, we learning disabilities, so a lot to do actually. A lot to do, yes.
So it's really important for the parents to know whether their children have the autism or not, because autism really needs special treatment, right, for education and everything. Yes, doctor. And
Yes.
so, as you can see that most of universities and education now are conducting online learning. And what challenges do teachers face when teaching students with autism online?
Okay. Number one, okay, because we know that the things that related to children with autism is something to do with the social interaction. So then and then they have impairment in using multiple non-verbal behaviors. Okay, then when online, you see, even when you are face to face, you are having a problem. Okay, and of course online will be more problem because and then because they initially they are lack children with autism, okay, lack of spontaneous sharing of enjoyment or interest with others. So how can you, I mean, you share enjoyment and interest, and then and yet they are having problem in in involving in communication. For example, when you talk to, when we are having a chat, when you chat with your friends, face to face chatting, talk to someone or telling stories, whatever. Even for face to face, they are not really, they are not going to get involved. There's something because they are in their own world. If you can imagine, children with autism is something like they are living um, in a cave. Okay, they are something like they are in a cave. Then okay, then they didn't know what is going on outside. You can imagine like that. They are something like they are in prison or in a cage. They don't know what's going on outside. Not because they don't want to get involved, but naturally their characteristics is like that. They are in their own world. Okay, and then beside that, you see, sometimes, okay, like I said earlier, due to the sensory kind of disorder, they might be having unusual fears. So perhaps, maybe among them, those who are having problem with computer, with digital things, because you see the sound, sounds. For example, like when teacher, let's say online learning, okay, teacher to try to play music. Maybe among those who are, have fear, annoyed when they listen to music, when they hear sounds, something like that. Many things, okay? And yet, because in terms of their features, I mean their characteristics, they like to laugh or giggles for no apparent reasons. And then, for example, when you are talking to them like this, in online, you have no idea why they are laughing, why they not laughing or giggles, because for no apparent reasons. So, and then they cannot focus their attention, of course. So many things. Okay, and that they always reject physical contact. Moreover, when you are dealing them online, which is not appropriate at all. And for me, when you talk about this, actually, you cannot teach children with autism online. What you can do is to train the parents what they can do with the autistic children at home, but not to to do the online learning per se, something like that with autistic children. Cannot. See?
Okay, that just means it's really hard to learn online to student to the autism people. How they can express their feeling? They express it easy.
Okay, the struggle that when talking about their emotion, actually, the struggle that the struggle that they face is number one is to understand emotion. Okay, to understand emotion. So this is the struggle that they are facing. So when talk about when and they are having with the what we call as the emotional distress. They have this emotional distress problem, and then number one is to recognize emotion. What is their feeling? And feeling is something which is abstract. To identify the emotion, and then to identify or recognize the emotion of others, and then to express emotion is one thing, and then after that to regulate emotion. So many things, actually. You see, because because their sensory perceptions are disordered. That's the thing. Okay, and then, for example, like they cannot distinguish between eye wounds or okay. Sorry, my battery. Okay, right. They cannot distinguish between I choose not to and I am not able to. You get what I mean? Won't and can't. They cannot distinguish between these two. And then and yet they are a concrete thinker in terms of cognitive. They are a concrete thinker. They interpret language very literally, and then you cannot use idioms, for example. Okay, and then their vocabulary is very limited. So many things. So when they want to express their emotion, for example, they might not know how to tell. Because of the limited vocabulary, they don't know how to tell. And yet, when they are laughing, it's not necessarily meaning that they are happy. They are laughing, but actually they are frustrated. They are frustrating. They experience frustration. But when we look at them, they are laughing. You see? And then, and of course, okay, in order for us to help them in terms of their emotional development, for example, we need to identify what triggers that make them meltdown. Okay, and then as teachers, as parents, we have to love them unconditionally, because they are really struggling in in these things. Okay. Besides that, they have very rigid understanding about their view of the world. Okay, and they also have a problem with the pragmatic language. For example, taking turn. You see, something like that. This is all about pragmatic language or something related to culture. For example, when like I say Assalamualaikum, and then sometimes they heard good morning. It's something related, different according to different culture. They have problem with that, and yet then they have the main problem is that they have difficulty in understanding that other people has a mind. Something in their mind is something in their mind, but they cannot think that other people also have their mind. Something like that. So actually many things, but of course it differ according to different stage. I mean different level. Whether they are only Asperger syndrome, for example, or whether they are, for example, whether they are mild, whether they are severe. Of course, it's differ from one to another in terms of the level.
So that means they have many difficulties in expressing their feelings. Since that happened, do you think there are, other than teacher, what other professionals are needed by students with autism? They need like a speech therapist or occupational therapist or educational psychologist, or how?
Yes, because number one is that okay, teachers who are okay. Number one, those who are taking care of those autistic children, they are not only need occupational therapists, education psychologists, and then therapists, even therapists, and then teachers, but also in terms of nutrition, because there are research which indicated that certain food will have effect on children with autism, will increase their their aggressive behavior. So many things. Nutritionists, dietitian, parents also need to know. Okay, teachers, occupational therapists in terms of helping them with the therapy, and then because when talking about that, there are many skills involved. when you want to enhance to develop children with autism. Okay, I mean even community per se, community in general. I mean because they need to because in certain situation, in many situations, you see, awareness, if there is no awareness, is very difficult. When parents who are having children with autism, for example, like when they bring out their kids outside, and then people look at them as, you know, um, very negative perspective about the children, about the child. Okay, and then they tend to get angry and scold the child or hit the child, for example, which will not help the child at all. In other words, those who are going to deal with the children, for whatever reason, they have to know the characteristics of autistic children. This is very, 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 very important. They need to learn about autism. Either occupational therapists, of course, education psychologists, and then the teachers. You see, and then the parents, and then the community per se. They need to know who are these children with autism. Okay, in other words, everyone need to become an expert, you know, to take care or to develop this child. Okay, and then and of course patient, and then never give up, because we always say that sometimes even though, for example, like myself, okay, even though I know, you know, certain characteristics of children with autism, okay, but I don't experience raise up children with autism. I don't. Okay, I may get the experience through my friend who have children with autism, for example, or even my cousin, one of my cousins autistic. Okay, something like that. But I don't raise them up personally as a parent, or as you know, as my student. And we may say things, but indeed the experience of the, I mean the problems or the difficulties, the struggle that faced by the parents, by the teachers, of course cannot be described. Okay, they know, they, of course, they know better. They are the one who know everything about the children, particularly because each of them is different from one to another. If each of them, there is no certain characteristic in which when you say, okay, autism, characteristic number 1 until 10, we cannot say that 10 autistic children will have the same characteristics. Maybe 5 same, 5 not, something like that. So that's why the specialists who are going, even not only occupational therapists, teachers, nurses, nutritionists, psychiatrists, child psychiatrists, you see, and then maybe play therapy, because we can also do play therapies, for example. Yeah, many expert, even many professionals are needed actually to help the children. And then not only that, for me, even architect, you know, even architect, for example, if you are, or interior design, for example, to help the children, they need to know what is New Zealand room, to help them, you know, to suit the children with autism. You know, sometimes in certain center they may provide a New Zealand room for children with autism, but if you don't understand what is New Zealand room, then you have no idea what to do, how to make them calm, for example, things like that. So many professionals actually need, even though they might say that it's nothing to do with our area or our areas of expertise, but basically, actually, we need someone, let's say a designer, I mean, for example, like interior design, we need interior designer that understand, okay, what kind of environment, what kind of structure, what kind of design that can suit the children. See, nutritionist or dietitian, what kind of food that's suitable for children with autism. What you will always hear only doctors, nurses, education psychologists, therapists, but beyond that actually, not only those, but other people as well. Okay.
Yeah, so you're saying that everyone should understand who is people with autism and what are they need. I mean, like for especially for the person who is really has a close relationship with people with autism. In fact, it's not only the doctor, the psychological. It has to be everyone from another aspect should understand who is autism, what is autism, and what are they need, right, doctor?
Yep.
And do the students with autism suffer from self-esteem issues? And if yes, how could the school manage this issue?
Actually, because they are having they are struggling in understand their own emotion, and there are many ways that we can do to help the children with okay, so okay, self-esteem actually is something um, okay, self-esteem is something that quite subjective for children with autism, because even they are because they are struggling in understand emotions. Okay, they even struggle because self-esteem is something to do with the self-concept. Self-esteem is something to do with the self-identity. Okay, self-esteem also is something to do with self-efficacy. But perhaps, something that we can to do to enhance their self-esteem is, for example, to teach them to manage their routine. At least to they have self-management skills. It's very important. Self-have skills. When they have the self-have skills, they can manage themselves. And then and I'm talking about this. Of course, we can. I refer to the mild one. Okay. So then we can when they have the self-management skill, self-have skills, and then when they start to learn to recognize the emotion, they are able to differentiate between the feeling of anger, the feeling of sad, all these 6 basic emotions. And then later on, when they start to know, when we reinforce them, for example, like we may apply we may use, I mean, the specialist might be using applied behavior analysis, one of the techniques in handling children with autism. Okay, so then later on, little by little, then we can boost their self-esteem, in which they understand, okay, the feel they understand the feeling of self-esteem, this one. Because normal people, of course, we know what is self-esteem. Okay, but when we treat them with unconditional love, you see, and when we know the techniques, the approaches, and things like that, then the self-esteem will emerge in them, even though they might not really, not really know what is that self-esteem. But the most important, when they experience confidence, okay, when they experience happiness, when they experience that they are loved, when they experience that there is people who understand them, then of course the self-esteem will boost up. Yep.
So that means self-esteem can be improved or solved by managing their routine and helping them. Okay, how important is the family in providing support to children or adults with autism?
Yes, of course, it's very important
It's very important.
because, yeah, very, very important. The issue is that if the parents are not knowing that they are not are ignorance of the characteristics of autism. I'm just afraid that they just treated them as, because in particular when they are in terms of the behavior, aggressive behavior. So if the parents, they didn't know that this aggressive behavior is due to the autistic characteristics, you know, then they might label that as aggressive child. Okay, and then they tend to punish the child, which make them suffer more through the punishment. Okay, aggressive punishment in particular. And when the family is also ignoring about the food that might affect on their behavior, have effect on the behavior, then it will be also a problem. And then the same thing when talking about learning, particularly for parents who put pressure on academic, for example. Okay, and then when you have no idea that your children are not able to focus their attention, having a problem with the auditory memory, they are having limited vocabularies. So things like that, of course, they really need support from parents. And we know that all children, regardless of whether they are special needs or not, they need support from parents. Parental involvement is very crucial. Family involvement is very crucial. Moreover, for autistic children, yes.
Okay, and how do the school prepare students with autism for universities or even the workplace?
Well, okay, I don't think that the school are preparing. Preparing, because what they do is for short term. The most important is to develop, to develop the children in terms of among the problems that they are having. Then they will be helping the autistic children with their auditory memory, for example, their attention, their communication skills, their vocabulary, ability to communicate, ability to identify emotion, ability to manage their anger, and ability to manage their tantrums, focusing on that. And then, in other words, more to the life skills. And then when we manage to do that, to do this intervention, okay, through various approaches, various approaches, various techniques in handling those children. When they grow up slowly, inshallah, they will be getting better and better, because usually in many situations, based on research, children with autism, they are not, their IQ is high, the IQ of, and some of them, okay, we call them idiot savant. Some of them even have certain potential, or a specific potential, or what we call as very rare, what we call as seven syndrome, in which they have an extraordinary ability in a specific area or skill, okay, while functioning at the intellectual disabilities level in all other areas. So, but if you are not able to identify these extraordinary skills, then it will be a problem. You see, and these things actually, through the practices of through the treatment, through the therapy, through many things that we do to help them, actually, when they grow up, of course, this thing will be we will be able to prepare them for universities or even the workplace. But the most important, whether the parents are ignorant or they are aware, whether the teachers are well trained or not. Because I have a friend in which her child is an autistic child, and but of course, very mild autistic child. This student, his child study abroad in Australia, and then and even further, he studied in masters. Like I said earlier, because their IQ is high, they have no problem with IQ. Children with autism, have no problem with IQs, except there are also few cases related to what we call as comorbidity. Meaning to say that autistic plus disability, other disability. But in general, autistic children, they have no problem with the IQ. So they have a potential to become a university students. Okay, particularly for the mild one. Then it back to the preparation of the schools in terms of the teachers training and also the home environment and support from parents to prepare them for the universities and also for their workplace in the future.
Okay. What kind of training should teachers go through of their professional development when teaching a student with autism?
Well, talking about training, see, okay, number one, the teacher need to have a knowledge in relation to providing the understand about the physical layout of the classroom. Even though we feel like this is very simple, you know, but for children with autism, it's crucial. Okay, for example, like they need to be given a training in terms of the safety and structure of the classroom. Okay, and then the setting up of the schedule for the children with autism, regular time for meals, therapy, school, bedtime, and then reinforcement in terms of rewarding good behavior, for example. Okay, because based on research, the positive reinforcement can go along with the children with autism. So okay, to catch them doing something good. Okay, and then consistency in terms of the children's environment. Okay, and yet to create safety zone. So this is one part in terms of the structure and safety. And then another thing is that communication, how to communicate with them. You know, then teachers need to be trained also in terms of the non-verbal ways to connect non-verbal cues. For example, pay attention to the kinds of sounds they make, their facial expressions, and the gestures they use when they are tired, hungry, or want something because they are having a problem in communicating or expressing their feelings. Okay, I mean, they need to be trained in terms of understanding the behavior and how to deal with the behavior because of the non-verbal things that they, the difficulties that they face. Okay, and teachers need to also have to be trained in terms of their understanding about their the autistic children's sensory sensitivities. Okay, they have to figure out what sight, sound, smells, movements, tactile sensations that trigger the children's bad or disruptive behavior. Okay, and of course, the teacher need to be trained in terms of the treatment plan. So basically, I can see that okay, there are four main. Okay, there are four main aspects. Okay, perhaps this will go to the third question, your last questions. Okay, all right. So basically, I may say that for teachers with students who are teaching students with autism, okay, in order for them to support students with autism, they have to be trained in terms of the instructional approaches, and then in terms of the strategies for classroom management, strategies for communication development, and then strategies for teaching social skills. The four main aspects is very, very crucial for teachers. When I say instructional approaches, for example, like the visual approaches, okay, the visual approaches, because we know that they have to know the importance of the use of visual aid to teach children. Okay, and then to provide positive praise while the student is learning, for example. Okay, so this is more to the instructional. And then when we talk about the strategies, then they need to know that children with autism should always be calm, should always be given. We need to provide relaxation opportunities and areas. This one is for classroom management. Okay, we need to provide opportunities for meaningful contact with peers. Okay, so that and then plan for transitions, for example. Okay, so this is in terms of the classroom management per se, and yet, okay, in terms of communication, what kind of vocabulary that the students that is appropriate for the children, so that they can comprehend and understand. Okay, what kind of language that we should use. Okay, and then because they are having a problem of processing the information, then we need to give them time. Okay, to develop their oral language comprehension. Things like that, things related to that. And then another thing is that to develop their conversation skills, even colors also. Okay, colors also can be used, for example, to represent the emotional context. Okay, and then of course another thing is this. The teachers, to support the children with autism in school, the teachers need to learn about the strategies, to be trained in terms of the strategies for teaching social skills. For example, like social stories, you know, or singing a song, many things that can be used, all the strategies. Okay, and then or maybe using computer for certain children with autism. Maybe you can teach them, okay, how to use computer as well. So many things actually when talking about how the support that the school can give to teach children with autism. Yes.
Okay, thank you, Doctor. So it sounds like so many things that the teachers should know in terms of teaching to students with autism, like how to communicate with them, how to behave with them, how to treat them. And you said that even the color section, the teacher have to know about that. Okay, so I think we arrived in our last question. So, what are your last words regarding support for students with autism in schools?
My last word. I think for me the most important thing is that in the real life we need to be someone that would like to judge things easily based on surface. We need to understand the factors behind something. You see, the problem of us is that usually we tend to become someone that in our daily life, many in our society in particular, we tend to become someone that like to judge. And then when you are not quite sure about certain information, then you just share. You see, and then in many situations, when you observe something, you might tell people what you think, not what you observe. And this is really a problem. When we see someone taking things, we talk about why they are taking things, and then, things that you can't see, you can't observe, but you tell people. You don't tell people what you observe, but you tell people what you think. So that's the problem. So then for me to support this kind of behavior is not only dangerous for in the context of supporting children with autism, but also is something will create problem to the society when we stick to this kind of attitudes, this kind of behavior among us. So then, of course, to support them, we need to support the parents. We need to avoid judgment. We need to avoid labeling people. You see, labeling children. We need to understand the factors behind certain actions, for example. That's all I think.
So like we as human have to understand about others people. Like not everything can be discussed. Like what autism's people have in their mind, they cannot put all everything to in the talks, right? Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Master Abazi. So I think this is our last questions. And so, ladies and gentlemen, we come to the end part of our speech. We would like to say thanks again to the presenter, Associate Professor Dr. Master Abazis. And that's really interesting, informative, and insightful talks today. And thanks to audience for the participation and for the attention. And sorry for any mistakes that we have. And thank you for the listening.